I'm Corbitt with DVAuction, here with your feeder flash for Monday, November the 24th, brought to you in part by Gamrazine by Bimeda. Be first to the fight with Gamrazine for rapid, reliable results. Reaches the target area when you give them a shot in 30 minutes, and it lasts in the system for 10 days, guys. For more information, go to bimedaus.com. Also, Joplin Regional Stockyards in Carthage, Missouri. They are indeed having a big sale here today, even though it's Thanksgiving week. They're expecting about 8,000 head with the yearling special in conjunction with their regular sale. It's going to start at 6 o'clock in the morning, and they're going to have a lot of yearlings. They've got 80 plus loads of yearlings, straight loads, guys. If you need some and you want to get some this week, you better get them there. There's not going to be too many places to get them due to the Thanksgiving holiday and then everything that's going on with the markets and things too. There'll be lighter runs around. But they will have their cow sale on Wednesday, regular cow sale with weigh-ups. They are going to have that value-added special coming up December the 4th. That'll be on a Thursday. That'll be here before you know it. They did have a Show Me Select replacement heifer sale on Friday last week, and those fancy replacement heifers that had been screened by the Missouri Department of Agriculture had been pelvic measured. They had all kinds of minimum requirements they had to meet. They sold from $3,600 to $4,800 with the average on all of them about 250 head at $4,177, so that was a good sale for them. And be sure and remember, all your sales at Joplin Regional Stockyards are on DVAuction.com. Tyson loses market share, and you guys know by now that they had planned to, or they have announced that they are going to shut down the Lexington, Nebraska beef processing facility there, Tyson Foods is, and they are going to reduce the Amarillo plant to just one shift. So they're going to be losing significant market share in the beef industry there. That all happened on Friday, but before that we had a cattle on feed report, and it was slightly friendly there. So let's tell you that, and then we'll talk about all the things that happened with that announcement from Tyson Foods. The cattle on feed report come in on Friday at 2 o'clock Central there, said that the on feed totals for November the 1st were 97.8% of a year ago. The guesses were 97.9, so that's the right side to be on, even though it was extremely close. Your placements for October come in at 90% smooth, which was less than the 92.2 that they had predicted. And the marketings for October come out at 92%, and the average guess was 92.6. So slightly friendly, we could say, and just about the time people started feeling decent about that, come out with this big announcement that Tyson plans to close, and we assume it's permanently. They're saying that it's going to be a permanent close of one of the largest beef processing facilities in the country, especially up in the northern plains, guys. And so that was a shock. It's never good whenever you have less shackle space, and we're going to have significantly less. But here for the past few years, and probably for the next couple years, we've got more hooks than we got cattle, and all of your plants have been running at a reduced efficiency there. But that's going to be shocking to that part of Nebraska, guy. The Lexington, Nebraska community is about 10,000 people. That plant served 3,200 employees. All of them will be having to find another job, likely somewhere else. That plant could slaughter up to 5,000 head a day. Hadn't been running near that wide open for quite some time there. But the beef segment of Tyson had, there's a lot of different quotes in there, how much money Tyson's been losing there in your beef. On the beef part of it, they've been making a lot of money. In other parts, they made a lot of money during the COVID, record profits during COVID, but they've been losing quite a bit of money here, reportedly of late in the beef segment of their business there. That plant was 35 years old, and you know, things get old, they're not as efficient. But I got a few statements I want to make about this. You guys, you know, I'm not really going to claim whether it's you know, what's going to become of this, but why close a plant in the northern plains when that's where the cattle are right now? We're flush with cattle in the northern plains. You know, we talked about last week how big the carcasses are on some of these cattle, and all the bigs are up in that part of the country, in Nebraska and Iowa. So why close the plant there when we're extremely short of cattle down in the southern plains? And margins have improved lately. You know, the last couple of months there, your margins have improved. The packers are getting along a lot better now than they were, you know, say 4, 5, 6 months ago. All your major plants have been running at a reduced schedule there, and they're saying it was as light as 78%, but I think it was a lot lighter than that. Most of these plants down here in the southern plains have just been running 3 days a week, and not really humping that. I mean, they're not hauling that many cattle into those plants, guys. But none of your plants have been slaughtering near as many cattle as they could. They just can't get their hands on them. Another thing, basically it's just a wash up there in Nebraska. They built a new plant that just opened here recently, the sustainable beef plant, which is less than an hour's drive, or about an hour's drive from that Lexington plant. They built a plant up there, and one had to be terminated. So that's basically what happened. I don't think they could stand the stress. That new sustainable beef plant would have been much, much more efficient than that old plant there at Lexington. So that's likely the biggest reason for it. And I think there's more to it than just what they're saying. Maybe there was a major cattle provider to them. One of their formula friends there was getting a sweetheart deal that had been sending a lot of cattle, or the majority of the cattle, into that Lexington plant. And maybe that supplier decided to go with somebody else. And so that plant would have been screwed. I mean, where were they going to get the cattle from? They no longer buy any cattle on a negotiated basis to amount to anything. So where were they going to get the cattle from? So basically they were forced to close up like that. But I think something like that probably had as much to do with it as anything. And the main thing is, ultimately, Tyson didn't close that plant in Lexington because they're getting out of the beef business and they don't want to slaughter cattle anymore, and they don't need that. They would have liked to have kept their market share. It makes it easier for them to do business. Whenever they've got, you know, they've got their own line of grocery stores and customers like that, they want to be able to provide them with all the protein that they need. And they're going to be running short on beef. Now they are going to step it up in the other plants that they have, so they'll be processing a little bit more up closer to efficiency there. But what happens when the numbers come back up? These other three of the big four, and then likely that new plant that's not too far from them, they're going to be you know, slaughtering much more cattle than Tyson's going to be able to, since they've made this change, and it's going to help them when they get ready to do their meat sales. So I don't know, but the main reason ultimately that they are closing plants and things like that is because there's not very many cattle out there. We've established that. That's been well advertised. There's not very many cattle out there. That's bullish when there's not very many cattle out there. Now there's going to be a lot of media attention on this, and And my friend Jim Folk up there in South Coffeyville, Oklahoma, he says every time I say that the board's going to go one way, it goes the other, and he's hoping that I'm going to say that it's going to go down the limit on Monday. I think it'll go down the limit on Monday, and if it doesn't, that tickles me to death, guys. But it is going to appear very, very bullish. But the smart guys in the industry that I know said, you know, if you're closing a plant and you're not getting out of business, it's because there's not very many cattle around. And when there's not very many cattle around, that's a bullish signal. And we're not near as tight on cattle as we're going to be this spring, guys. So just take that into account. Let's talk about your board for last week. December live cattle futures. Monday was up 212. Tuesday was down 1 1/4. Wednesday was down 372. Thursday down 157. And Friday down 27 cents. Of course, the board closed before any of that announcement come out. So your December live cattle futures ended the week at 214.45. That was down 470 for the week. February ended the week at 214.77, down 475. January feeder cattle, Monday was up $1.17. Tuesday was up 92. Wednesday up $1.07. Thursday down $1.20, and Friday down $2.15, with your January feeder cattle ending the week at 314.22, which was down 633 for the week. March contracts ended the week at 307.05, down 670, or actually 1670. Oh my gosh, yeah. So that was a lot worse. Let's look at your grain futures there. March corn ended the week at 437.5. That was up 7 1/4 cents a bushel. January beans ended the week at 11.25, up a half cent a bushel. March hard red winter wheat ended the week at 526 1/4, down 4 3/4 cents a bushel. Your fat cattle trade last week up through Thursday, which is the latest information we have as of now. I'm giving this to you on Sunday evening. But through Thursday of last week at 2 o'clock, they had sold 43,300 head negotiated cash in your major feeding areas there. Live prices of fat steers and heifers sold from $212 to $224. That was $6 lower. Weighted average on live steers was $217.57, down $7.45, so much more than just your basic trend. Dress sales sold from $332 to $342. That was $14 to $15 lower, but the weighted average on dressed steers was only $7.53 lower at $343.41. Now Friday they had some more sales there. They haven't wrapped up all of Friday's sales. They'll have that on Monday's report, and I'll give it to you on the next visit we have. But Iowa sold 800 head on Friday, 21,500 for the week. Live prices on Friday in Iowa, $212 to $215. That's the extreme bottom of the price range from last week. And dress sales at $338. Nebraska sold 300 head only on Friday, 17,800 for the week. And the only price I had on Friday was off the market at $210. That's very disappointing. I'm sure why somebody took that. Kansas sold 100 head on Friday. They sold 3,100 for the week. And the only price I had on Friday was $218. And Texas didn't sell anything on Friday, and they sold 2,100 head for the week. Box beef cutout values last week were lower throughout the week. Your weighted average on all of last week's choice sales was down 378 at 371.27, and at the end of the week on Friday late, that price was 371.48, which was a tick better than that weighted average. Your weighted average on all of last week's select sales was down 261 at 355.19, and by late Friday that quote was 356.98. It was actually back up a little bit, up $1.80 from that weighted average, but the choice select spread on the weighted average was just over $16, and all that information based on 678 loads of cuts, grinds, and trimmings. Your slaughter last week rounded up to be estimated at 585,000. Of course, our slaughters have been cut so much here the last few months, but that 585,000 was 9,000 better than the previous week, but 50,000 less than the same week a year ago. Let's talk about what else is going on. Valley Grande Ranch feeders up there in Lodgepole, South Dakota. Mark Archibald, he'd been working overseas out of the country there for a week or two, going to some meetings, meeting people and doing some things there. But the other two brothers were there and they had their full crew, and he said when he got back, he said he'd seen that a lot of the pens had been filled, so they're getting that deal taken care of, but he still has some available pens, guys. They're getting along good with the calves that they've got in there. People sending ball and calves to them. They're getting them all the shots, getting them straightened up, getting the ball out of them, getting them to eat. They're getting along good with them, but he's got a few pens left. If you guys are interested in sending some cattle to him, maybe you get some ball and calves bought cheap at a sale barn this week and you got nowhere to go with them, send them to Valley Grande Ranch Feeders right there. For more information, go to archbro.com. That's ARCHBRO.com. Let's talk about your feeder cattle market, brought to you by Specialty Risk Insurance. They are working to protect your livelihood. Your weighted or your RTI real-time index from DVAuction ended the week at 336.49, based on an 800-pound cash auction steer. That was down 453 for the week. Your latest CME cash feeder cattle index was at 339.72. Your trends in your sale barns last week, mostly, with the exception of light calves, most of your trends on steers and heifers were unevenly steady to $5 lower. And there was a lot of unevenly at almost every sale that was covered by a federal state market reporter. You saw some unevenly in there, and that's just kind of the way it is, a little tumultuous. It's probably going to be tougher here on these Monday sales, especially since we got the holiday coming up on Thursday. A lot of people will be out of the market. A lot of people will be out of the market because of this Tyson plant closing, and they're just going to want to see, what's going to go on with that. So I expect a lot of orders to be missing in some Monday sales. Of course, I told you Joplin's going to have a pretty good sale there. Might bring some buyers back in buying some yearlings. Oklahoma City's only going to have 3,000 to 3,500, and there'll be a lot of other sales that are closed. The Southeast will be completely closed, and sometimes they don't want to buy cattle early in the week if they're going to have to ship them, at the middle of the week, right when people want to be off with their family there. But we'll hope for the best here on our Monday sales. We'll talk about some big sales that happened late last week and over the weekend. Where I was at on Friday in Fallon, Nevada, at Nevada Livestock Marketing, Jack Payne had a big sale there for his late November special. It was 6,100 head there at the sale barn, and tell you what, we had a better market than I thought. Of course, we were selling them right along whenever they made that announcement, and you did noticeably see some guys back off. Mostly the guys that were bidding online on DVAuction that were back here in the central part of the country, they weren't bidding quite as aggressively after that news come out. But I tell you what, for the most part, excellent sale there was your Superior Steel Sales, home of Superior Standard cattle handling equipment there. Stick out sale of the day. And you look at this market report there that comes from the computers there at Nevada Livestock Marketing, and you see your weight ranges, your average for that, and your high for that weight range. 3 to 4 weight steers had an average price of $5.30, and the high quote in those 3 to 4 weights, and they don't get the high quotes on the singles, guys, it'd be the high quotes on the bunches, was $6.10. 4 to 5 weight steers had an average price of $4.71 and a high price of $5.65. 5 to 6 weight steers had an average price of $4.17 and a high price of $4.89. 6 to 7 weight steers had an average price of $358 and an extreme high of $380, and 7 to 8 weight feeder steers had an average price of $294 and an extreme high price of $329. Now look at the heifers. 3 to 4 weight heifers there, they averaged $461, and that extreme high I know was mine because I remember that. It was $550 on some 3 to 4 weight heifer calves there. 4 to 5 weight steers had an average price of $429, an extreme high of $476. 5 to 6 weight heifers, averaged $379 with an extreme high of $432, and 6 to 7 weight heifers at Nevada Livestock Marketing in Fallon, Nevada, had an average price in that weight range of $321 and a high of $340. The highest quote, the most impressive I saw that happened all day there at Nevada Livestock Marketing was 55 steers weighed 519 pounds, bring $489. We can't get that in the center part of the country anywhere, guys. That's a big quote. Let's talk about some other individual quotes that were impressive all around the circuit late last week and over the weekend. How about Bluegrass Stockyards in Richmond, Kentucky? They always sell them good there. Jim Doss does an excellent job there. Sold 65 steers, weighed 807 pounds at $343 and a quarter. How about Modoc Auction Yard in Alturas, California, up in Northern California, another western market that we have there. It does a good job out there. 51 steers weighed 754, bring $332. How about Northern Plain Market there? Winter Livestock Auction in Winter, South Dakota. 86 steers weighed 719, bring $372. Wow, that's an impressive quote, guys, if you haven't been paying attention here lately. But the most impressive quote that I saw anywhere late last week or over the weekend, and your Macrocin, no BS, top quote for the day, come out of Fort Pierre Livestock Auction in Fort Pierre, South Dakota. It was 58 steers, weighed 893 at $344. And that's your feeder flash for Monday.